you plead?
Not guilty.
For those unfamiliar with court proceedings, that was the plea, not the verdict.
Set in 1960s Newcastle, The Duke is a heartwarming, delightful comedy drama about the true story of a man who steals a famed painting and holds it ransom for free television licenses for OAPs. The Duke is fun, with plenty of emotion and very likeable characters. The main cast are great, although their Geordie accents are at times questionable. The Duke's story follows the typical formula for biopics and of films of its genre, but as someone who was unfamiliar with the story, there were some pleasant surprises. Also, as someone who has lived in Newcastle all their life, the film does a decent job at portraying the city, the people and its culture, avoiding the classic stereotypes and tropes. The Duke is well made, well edited, with good characters and acting. It's also a fun film. In the long-awaited second season of The Righteous Gemstones, a group of assassins is attempting to kill the patriarch of the family. Meanwhile, each of the kids is trying to branch out and seize control of the empire for themselves. This show continues to be an enjoyable, often hilarious ride, with plenty of drama and thrills, twists and turns mixed in. This is a show that's equally about making people laugh as it is about fleshing out its characters with backstory and flashbacks, giving each of them their own goals and motivations, strengths and weaknesses. It's a great ensemble. Sometimes certain story elements and comedic moments venture into the bizarre and go a little too far, messing with the tone and mood, but it mostly works. This is a good fun show.
We must let her decide our fate. She must have the choice.
Cyrano, a soldier in love with someone he doubts harbours the same feelings for him, is tasked with writing romantic letters for this person on behalf of the person she loves. Meanwhile, a war is brewing, and the Duke wants love too. Cyrano is an enjoyable musical boasting a fantastic lead performance by Peter Dinklage, perhaps even a career best. The music does a good job at adding energy and emotion into affairs, although it can come and go at unusual times. There are action scenes, splashes of comedy, and of course, tons of romance and drama thrown in too. Cyrano is at times a little slow and perhaps a little long, but it is engaging thanks to its great cast and its story, and it has plenty of energy and excitement there to keep engagement going. I like this way more than I expected to.
James Frenchie, what you put in that stuff?
The animated anthology spin-off of The Boys is a mixed bag. Each episode is about 15 minutes long from a different creator and team, resulting in some episodes being great and others being bad, although only the final episode is canonical with the original show. Luckily, that episode is one of the best. Some of the episodes go for emotion and heart, some go for crass humour and gore, others go for weirdness and quirkiness. What works for one viewer will not work for others. The standouts were a Justin Roiland episode, looking very much like an episode of Rick and Morty, as well as the final episode. Each episode is well cast and acted, the animation is also great across the board. The problem is that the stories aren't always entertaining, and sometimes only vaguely connected to the boys.
That stuff.
The Batman is back, and this time around he's teaming with the GCPD to solve a series of murders on Gotham's elite that may harken back to Bruce Wayne's parents. The Batman is a dark, atmospheric, noir-inspired detective story with superhero elements mixed in. It's a slower, more psychological superhero film that examines the psyche of Bruce Wayne and Batman far more than most Batman movies. It is, however, too long, with many scenes that could have been condensed or trimmed and many shots that could have been cut. The story simply doesn't need to take as long as it does. The cast from top to bottom is fantastic, with each actor owning their respective roles. giving us a new and in some cases definitive take on these iconic characters. Although I would have liked to have seen more of Alfred. The Batman is a good film, at times venturing into greatness, but rarely situating itself there. For a full detailed review, check out the video on my channel.
You want to confess to a murder? Because we need to know who killed him tonight. Bam!
Everybody seems to be hiding something.
What is going on?
We're done here.
Yeah, but you didn't even know that was fake, and you straight up just chopped off his head.
Remember that.
In Apple TV Plus's The Afterparty, a murder has been committed, and in every episode we see the events from the perspective of one of the suspects, although each suspect's episode is presented in a different style of film. For example, one suspect sees everything as a music video, another is animated, another is horror themed, and so on and so forth. These stylistic elements and changes in genre and tone are brilliantly done. Each episode looks and feels slightly different from the last, with an overarching element that keeps them cohesive and connected. It's well constructed and crafted with great characters too. The problem is that this is ultimately a comedy show, but a lot of the comedy misses the mark and gets lost in the genre tropes and styles. On top of that, the whodunit mystery at the centre of it all is predictable. I knew who did it several episodes before it was revealed, and the central mystery isn't all that compelling either. The show is well made, but the story it's making is a little weak and uninteresting at times.
It's gonna be me.
The latest Pixar movie, Turning Red, is about a girl who reaches a certain age, and because of a curse in her family, she transforms into a giant red panda. It's also about puberty. Turning Red is a new type of Pixar movie, one clearly inspired by recent animated movies from Sony and other studios, with more quick cuts and stylistic anime elements mixed in, along with a lot more humour. At the same time, it has all the classic Pixar heart and charm, but unlike a lot of Pixar movies, it doesn't make you reach for the tissues. Instead, it goes for more happy and energetic emotions. The voice acting is great, the animation and the colours are fantastic, the story is enjoyable throughout, but the messaging, the metaphors and the analogies are messy. About halfway through, the not so subtle relations to puberty become confusing and lost, and the messaging almost vanishes. This results in a film that tries to say something, but ultimately goes for entertainment value instead. That's not bad, but it's a little disappointing.
It's gonna be me.
What the hell is this?
Pam and Tommy explores the relationship of the titular Pam and Tommy, and primarily focuses on the theft and release of their infamous sex tape. Along the way, it shows us the early days of internet pornography, and it examines ideas around consent and invasion of privacy. This is a fun, sometimes outlandish show, with two incredible central performances. Lily James is often unrecognisable as Pamela Anderson. She's fantastic, both in performance and in terms of makeup and prosthetics. Meanwhile, Sebastian Stan is great as the unlikable, hot-headed Tommy Lee, and I imagine the real-life Tommy Lee is not a fan of his unfavourable performance here. The show is very well directed and crafted. The sets, the costumes, the locations are all fantastic. About halfway through though, the show loses its purpose. The story starts to drag and then it kind of just stops. The messaging isn't presented or conveyed as well. The exploration of consent and invasion of privacy is very interesting, but only touched upon on a surface level basis. It's very disappointing. There's also the issue surrounding accuracy. A lot of this show looks and feels imaginative and exaggerated, but that's because the story they're telling never actually happened, at least not with as much depth as the makers wanted. I enjoyed Pam and Tommy, but it could have been and should have been so much more.
Get to be so smart.
How'd you get to be so dumb?
Nice try.
Ryan Reynolds is a time-traveling pilot intent on preventing the future from ever happening. Along the way, he meets his younger self and together, they battle time-traveling assassins and lots of emotional moments. The Adam Project is an 80s-inspired action comedy with a lot of fun moments, cool action scenes, heartwarming and emotional elements, and some good comedic beats. It has everything you would want and expect from a film like this, resulting in a fun, entertaining movie. The problem is that the story is full of time-traveling tropes and cliches. It lacks the originality or uniqueness, and it's very predictable. The villains are also a little on the weak side, doing things for simplistic, selfish reasons. There's not a lot of depth there. Ultimately, the Adam Project is fun and it's well directed and crafted, but certain story elements let it down.
Fucking hate magicians.
This is my moment.
I know, shit happens. You should be a bigger man and let it go. Well, I'm a woman, so fuck that. Thank you and good night.
Mrs. Maisel is no longer on stage. Her career has hit a snag and now she's forced to work in less reputable areas and rebuild her reputation. The 4th season of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is perhaps its weakest yet, but still a great fun ride and very well made. What this season says most though, is that it's time for things to end, which is happening next season. A lot of the comedic elements are growing tired and becoming repetitive. The main character is not progressing with her story and narrative arc all that much anymore, and the side stories are starting to take a much bigger spot in the show too. This is a show that's running out of ideas. Luckily, it's still funny, it's very well acted and cast. The sets, the costumes, the situations are all great too. This is a good season, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it ends. Hopefully, the end will be just as good, if not better than this.
Annabelle?
Annabelle Creation is one of the better entries in the Conjuring universe, with an ensemble cast and a unique haunted house location. This entry explores the origins of the infamous Annabelle and leads up to the events of the pretty bad first Annabelle movie. Notably, this entry into the Conjuring and Annabelle franchise is much closer in style, tone and story to the Conjuring movies themselves than the Annabelle ones. Characters arrive at a location, weird things happen, characters start to suspect something, and then things progress from spooky to batshit crazy and exciting. It's a fairly formulaic story, but enjoyable nonetheless, and it's essentially a Conjuring movie without the comfort of the investigators. Sadly, the ensemble cast aren't all given equal screen time, so some are more compelling than others, but there is a twist with the main character that surprised me quite a bit and left me wondering what was to come. That's impressive. Annabelle Creation is well crafted with good scares, a good location, and a good but too large cast. It has everything going for it, except a truly unique story and formula. Overall, a good horror movie.
Whatever happens, no one can say you didn't try.
What a great opening drive. Have they got the real Morris Flitcroft? No, I think that's him.
Morris Flitcroft.
Severiano Ballesteros.
You what?
Solo llámame Seve.
What's he? Seve.
Hasta entonces.
Hasta cojones.
The Phantom of the Open is a real swing that sometimes hits par. Golf jokes, I have a few of them. This is a decent biopic, one that relies on age-old humour and biopic tropes and formulas. It doesn't reinvent the wheel or do anything to set itself apart from the competition. The cast is good though, with Mark Rylance playing a likeable, often quirky and peculiar Morris Flitcroft, a middle-aged man trying to make it as a golfer without ever having played golf. The concept is fun, the film itself is also fun, and while the jokes lack brains or originality, they are often funny. The film has an inspirational, heartwarming and emotional element that works well and elevates the material. However, there are some slight fantastical and stylistic elements mixed in that don't fit in with the rest of the film. They distract from the story and the characters, and they're usually done for humour but completely miss the mark. The Phantom of the Open is a fun, enjoyable and sometimes emotional biopic anchored by great performances. It isn't mind-blowing or different from any other biopics though, and it will fail to stand out amongst a crowd of similar films.
One of the boys found this inside.
What do you think is on it?
I see one goddamn fucked up horror picture.
X is a fun, gory, graphic horror film about a film crew attempting to create a pornographic movie on the land of an elderly couple in the middle of Texas. Heavily inspired by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and other 70s movies and genres, X nails the aesthetics, looks, tone and mood of the time period, perfectly capturing the era and the films it's paying homage to. While the film lacks genuine creative scares, it does a really good job at creating a tone and building tension, with creepy moments happening slowly in the background, out of focus and in darkness. In addition, the makeup and prosthetics utilised are also well done, although they are often disguised in darkness and mood lighting. The characters in the story are a little cliche ridden, but the characters themselves are well acted and they are likeable enough. There are some surprises in terms of who is the hero and who you expect to survive or do well, which is a nice touch too, and there are some slight comedic moments that work well also. The big problem with the film is that it's very graphic. There are explicit sex scenes, often depicted in a humorous way, but after one too many of them, one does have to consider the necessity of them, their gratuitousness, and as such, whether this film is in fact a softcore porn movie. As a result, it won't be for everyone.
Ready when you are, Captain.
Let's fly.
In the 4th season of Star Trek Discovery, an anomaly is causing havoc. The Federation must figure out what it is and then how to stop it. Season 4 is a slight improvement over Season 3. It starts well, it has a good mid-season finale, and it ends well. Everything in between those 3 points is disappointingly boring, with journeys that spread out the story and a focus on mundane side quests. It doesn't help matters when the galaxy of this time period is uninteresting, and so much of the show in terms of characters, setting and story lacks a certain Star Trek look and feel. The action and thrills are enjoyable, the special effects are fine but not outstanding, the acting is good and some of the themes, debates and issues are interesting, but few of the characters are all that compelling anymore. I did however like the villain this season, who is provided with a fun personality as well as a decent backstory and motivation.
Forget this.
Fresh is a twisted, creepy thriller about the horrors of modern dating, where Sebastian Stan plays the man that seems too good to be true. Sebastian is great as the likeable but twisted Steve. He has a dark side, he has a fun, quirky side, and his performance does a good job at balancing both of these elements, while also adding in elements that flesh him out and make Steve seem real and believable. Daisy Edgar Jones is also good as Noah, the female lead tricked into a situation. She's immediately likeable and relatable, and when things go south, she does a good job at portraying a complex array of emotions. The film has gorgeous sets and good direction and cinematography. Many of the visuals harken back to 60s and 70s filmmaking, with homages to Alfred Hitchcock and Connery era Bond. It's all very well done, although the film can at times be slow, particularly in the first act, and the ending drags a bit.
Everyone is living in a constant threat of violence. Please be nice to us. Please be nice to us.
Big ending!
More to come! God damn it.
The 8th season of Reno 911, aka Reno 911 Defunded, is disappointing. Here, the sketches and the type of humour being utilised is growing dated and repetitive, and is sometimes in poor taste, missing the mark and failing to satirise. Much of the season focuses on the 3 leads, with the supporting cast often relegated to one-liners here and there. Notably, Nicey Nash is only ever present on green screen sketches, severely limiting her interaction with others. While most of the sketches miss the mark and are simply crude and crass, there are some very funny moments here and there. Of some note, the funniest moments are when the show isn't trying to be political or to send a message. This is a show that has outstayed its welcome, that doesn't know what to focus on, and more often than not ends up doubling down on the wrong jokes and sketches. But there are funny jokes in amongst them. This month I would have to recommend The Batman. It won't be for everyone, but it is a slow-paced detective superhero movie with action scenes and great characters and visuals. If you want to avoid something, I would say you have to avoid The Boys Presents Diabolical. It isn't bad by any means, but the anthology series nature of it means that not every episode hits the mark. If you want to watch it, if you're a big fan of The Boys, consider watching the final episode because it is the only canonical one.